Rahim. The next masla we're going to discuss is a very interesting masla, and this masla also is different from the other mazahib. So it goes as this: وَيُكْرَهُ لِلنِّسَاءِ أَيُصَلِّينَ وَحْدَهُنَّ بِالْجَمَاعَةِ. It is makruh for the woman to pray alone in jama'at. So what does it mean? What do you understand from that, Luqman? وَيُكْرَهُ لِلنِّسَاءِ يُصَلِّينَ وَحْدَهُنَّ بِالْجَمَاعَةِ. What do you understand from that masla? Right. So you've got a group of women here, right? 4 women, 5 women, 2 women, 3 women, 4 women, and they decide they want to make Jamaat Salah, but they've got no man to make Jamaat for them. So remember that the hukam of, according to some riwayat in Hidayah Sharif, is mentioned that to read namaz is Jamaat is sunnat mu'akkada. And in other kitabs it is mentioned that to read namaz in Jamaat is wajib. So the preferred opinion is that it is wajib to read in Jamaat, right? Although your Sahib Hidayah is given preference to the masah that it is sunnat mu'akkada. So this about sunnat mu'akkada of reading salat in Jamaat, etc., etc., it is for men, it is not for women, right? But be that as may, we saying wa yukrahu, and I mentioned to you before in the Hanafi books, whenever you get makruh, kariha, yakrahu, yukrahu, etc., etc., it means makruh tahrimi, understood? So wa yukrahu, it is makruh tahrimi lin nisa'i, for the woman folk, ayusallina wahdahunna, that they pray alone. That means, I tell you pray alone here means that's a literal translation, but in our context what it means, ayusallina wahdahunna, they pray Jamaat alone without an Imam, right? Okay, carry on. They're going to give the reason in front. Right. So they're saying, look here, why is it makruh to have a woman as an Imam? You know, when we were discussing all the postures of Salat, etc., etc., we told you a woman is satar, she's aura, right? As far as possible, she should be concealed, right? That's why we, all the postures of Salah we discussed. She will contract her body, she won't raise her hands so high. When she's ruku, she won't bend right down. She'll just bend enough to touch her knees. When she's in sajda, she will contract her body. She won't leave so much space that a small animal can go between her, etc., like this for the men, etc., 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 right? So, a woman is what you call satar, mastur. So it is inappropriate for her to be standing in front, exposed completely. And so I'm saying. So this is the thing. So if you decide to make a woman's jama'at, لا تخل لأنها, this woman's jama'at, لا تخلو عن ارتكاب محرم. It will not be free, right? لا تخلو عن ارتكاب محرم, from doing. When you make a jamaat, you will be doing something which is inappropriate. You will be doing something which is inappropriate, right? Use this one here. Okay. Right, you will be doing something which is appropriate. So لا تخلو عن ارتكاب محرم. And what is the intikab? It's either وهو قيام الإمام وسط الوصف فيكره كالعراة. So if you say, okay, don't make them stand in front, right? Because a woman must be concealed, right? Let her stand in the middle of the stuff, right? Let her stand in the middle of the stuff. So then that is also not appropriate. Why? Because remember, Imam must be in front, right? And we discussed this in the chapter of Urat, that if people don't have clothes, for example, they were stripped of their clothes by the Israeli army, etc., and they want to pray. So the details were there. But if they decide to pray in Jamaat, what we say, that the Imam will stand in the middle. He won't stand in front, because when he stands in front, his aura will be exposed to everybody. So if we say now, let her stand in front, that is not appropriate. Why? Because she's being exposed while she's supposed to be mastur. If we say she must stand in the middle, that is also not appropriate. Why? Because normally the Imam must be in front. So whichever way you look at it, there is going to be a degree of reprehensibility in it. Whichever way you look at it, there's going to be a degree of reprehensibility. And then here there's an important principle you learn, that you will not try to establish a sunnat. Like I told you, according to Sahih Hidayah, Jamaat is sunnat mu'akkada. And then also for men, also, not even for women. So you will not try to establish a sunnat mu'akkada and in the process commit something which is inappropriate. Right? So whichever way you look at it, whichever way you want to do it, if you make a stand in front, that is not correct, because why she will be, as a woman, she's supposed to be mastur, she's supposed to be concealed, right? So that's not right. If you make a stand in the middle, that's not also right. Why? Because the very nature of the imam is that the imam must be in front. The very nature of the imam is that the imam must be in front. So that is also not right. So why establish a sunnate muakkada at the expense of doing a forbidden action? So I'm saying, so that is what he's saying in the Ibarat there. لأنها, because making a woman's only jamaat, لا تخلو, it is not free an irtikabi muharramin, from committing a haram. وهو قيام الإمام, what is the haram thing? Either وقيام الإمام وسط الصف, it is making the imam stand in the middle, right? فَيُكْرَهُ كَالْعُرَاتِ. So this is inappropriate only the time of necessity, like when the people are naked, then you do it, right? وَإِنْ فَعَلْنَا, and even if but they say now it is makruh to make a woman's only jamaat, right? But if they do it for whatever reason, they decide to make woman jamaat. وَإِنْ فَعَلْنَا قَامَتِ الْإِمَامُ وَسْطَهُنَّ. Then the imama, she will stand in the middle. Why? لأن عائشة, because it's Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu ta'ala, فعلت كذلك, she done like that. So now the question will come to your mind, okay, you'll be saying it's makruh, etc., etc., but here you're saying yourself that Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu ta'ala anha, she made imamat, etc., right? لأن عائشة قالت كذلك وحمل فعلها الجماعة على ابتداء الإسلامي. This way she made وحمل فعلها Jamaat Namaz, and some ladies followed her, right? Was على ابتداء الإسلامي. This was in the beginning of Islam, right? Right. And then we say ولأن في تقدم ولأن في التقدم زيادة الكشف. So the other reason, remember I told you before, we gave the reasons why you will not make an imam. One is you won't make a stand in the middle because that is only necessity. You do it at the time of necessity when the people don't have clothes, right? That's one. And then the other, I told you that also we won't make a stand right in front. Why? Because a woman is not supposed to be outstanding in front for everybody to see. So they say ولأن في التقدم, because في التقدم, making a stand in front, زيادة الكشف, is more of exposing of her, which is not in keeping with the status of a woman. She shouldn't be exposed. She should be concealed, right? Okay, carry on, read the next one.
قال ومن صلى مع واحد أقامه عن يمينه في حديث ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما فإنه عليه الصلاة والسلام صلى به وأقامه عن يمينه ولا يتأخر عن إمامه. وعن محمد رحمه الله أنه يدع.
Okay, so the new masla now we're discussing. So for example, you're making Jama'at, right? Now normally we know when there are several people, the Imam will stand right in front, right? And what will happen? The Musallin will stand behind. But say for instance you got two men, right? You want to make Jama'at. وَمَنْ صَلَّى مَعَ وَاحِدٍ. So here we speak about a man in particular, right? So who wants to pray with one person, with a man? أَقَامَهُ أَيَّمِينِهِ. He will place him on his right. Make him stand on the right, right? Right? لحديث ابن عباس رضي الله تعالى عنه, because of the hadith of Ibn Abbas. فإنه عليه السلام, because Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam صلى به, he prayed with. There's a famous hadith, you'll do this inshallah when you do the hadith books. Ibn Abbas spent one night. You came across the hadith at the house of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then when Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam started praying at night, etc. So فإنه عليه السلام صلى به, Nabi sallam prayed with him, وأقامه أيمينه, he made him stand on his right. Right? Here, according to this opinion, ولا يتأخر عن الإمام. According to this opinion here, But there's one musalli will stand directly in line with the imam. He won't go slightly back. وَلَا يَتَأَخَّرُ عَنِ الْإِمَامِ. Right. But right, وَأَنْ مُحَمَّدٍ رَحِمَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى, but narrated on the authority of Imam Muhammad, أَنَّهُ يَضَعُ أَصَابِعَهُ in the أَقِبِ الْإِمَامِ. According to Imam Muhammad رحمه الله تعالى, he will place أصابعه, in this context, أصابع, let's translate this, fingers, but toes, correct, yeah? He will place his toes in the أَقِبِ الْإِمَامِ, so his toes will be in line with the heels of the Imam. So the main thing is the heels. So this and the fatwa is upon this here, right? Even though wal awwal wal azhar here in the kitab they're saying that wal awwal, the first opinion, that is to stand in line with the imam, that is the more preferred thing, but it's not the more preferred thing. So we know that the fatwa is on this here from the other kitab. You understand? The fatwa is on this here that what will happen is that the musalli, when he's alone, will stand slightly behind. He will stand slightly behind the imam. Wal awwalu huwa zahiru. The first one, it is the zahir one, right? That's what he's saying there, but I told you that's not the correct, right? Carry on. Wow, musi'un. So what they're saying in the next ibarat, look here, like I told you, according to what is mentioned in the kitab here, you will stand on the right of the imam, right? You will stand on the right of the imam. And I told you the preferred opinion is you stand on the right, but slightly back, to such an extent that your toes will be in line with the heels of the imam, right? But if a person stood directly behind the imam, or he stood on the left of the imam, as long as he was slightly behind the imam, you say the jamaat is valid. What? The jamaat is valid. It does not affect or impact upon the validity of the jamaat in any way. Yes, we'll say it is contrary to the sunnah. It's not exactly according to the sunnah, so you won't get the reward of practicing upon the sunnah, but it does not impact upon the validity of the salat in any way. Okay, read the next one. Right. So here, still still now, we're still speaking about we only got men, right? وَإِنْ أَمَّا وَإِنْ أَمَّا وَإِنْ أَمَّا, what you got there is اثنين. وَإِنْ أَمَّا اثنين تَقَدَّمَ عَلَيْهِمَا. So if a one person was the imam of two people, then like how we know, like a triangle, né? The imam will stand right in front and the two musallin will stand behind. وإن أما اثنين تقدم عليهما. Carry on. Right. So here Imam Yusuf says, وأن أبي يوسف يتوسطهما. He will stand in the middle of them two. Like how, you know, we discussed that, like how the women make the jamaat, or like how the naked people make the jamaat. Will stay in the middle, but the fatwa is not upon on this opinion. The fatwa is when the moment the musallin are two or more, the fatwa is upon this, that the moment the musallin are two or more, then what will happen? Will stand right in front, right? We don't have وَنُقِلَ ذَلِكَ عَنْ عَبْدِ اللَّهِ بْنِ مَسْعُودٍ. So وَنُقِلَ ذَلِكَ عَنْ عَبْدِ اللَّهِ بْنِ مَسْعُودٍ, and this has been narrated from Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, that this one here, we say, when Abi Yusuf yatawassatuhuma, that he must stand in between. When there are two, he will stand in between, like how the women read, or like how the naked people read. That has been narrated. وَنُقِلَ ذَلِكَ, that is Imam Yusuf's opinion, and he uses the athar or the statement of Ibn Mas'ud as a proof, right? وَنُقِلَ ذَلِكَ عَنْ عَبْدِ اللَّهِ بْنِ مَسْعُودٍ رضي الله عنه. Carry on. أنه عليه الصلاة والسلام تقدم على أنس حين صلى بينهما ووجدوه. Yeah. So we say, look here, we've got a clear proof. We've got a clear proof where Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam once led us Anas and another orphan child in prayer. And when he led the orphan child in prayer, and he stood like how we normally stand, like how we make Jamaat, he stood right in front. Walana, our proof, annahu alayhi salam, that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam تقدم على أنس, he went in front of Anas, right? واليتيم, and the orphan boy, حين صلى بهما, when he prayed with them to حين صلى بهما, فهذا للأفضلية. So this year, where he stood right in front, he never just stand in the middle of them. This is proof to show that this is the more virtuous thing. That when you got two or more musallin, stand right in front of them, right? وَالْأَثَرُ دَلِيلٌ لِلْإِبَاحَةِ. That statement there, right? That statement there, وَالْأَثَرُ دَلِيلٌ لِلْإِبَاحَةِ, that is we're answering the opinion of, right? So that we're answering the proof of. Here's a question. So if there's only two musallis, imam in front, one musalli on the right side and one on the left, one triangle. Yeah, no. What we mean is there's only two musallis. It doesn't mean, it means that it is two musallis and the imam. The imam will stand in front and the two musallis will stand behind him. Will stand behind him, not on the right. There will be no gap between the two musallis. There will be no gap between the two musallis. When I say triangle, I don't mean that there must be a gap between the two musallis that is behind the imam, but rather just they will stand together with the shoulder to shoulder. But if you look at it from on top, maybe it will seem like a triangle. So it doesn't mean that they have to separate, right? Doesn't mean they have to separate. Are you with me, right? So al-atharu dalilul ibahati. This of what Ibn Mas'ud, Imam Yusuf said. Remember that he will stand in front of them when there's two people. He will stand in the middle of them. And this is the statement of Ibn Mas'ud. Wal-atharu dalilul ibahati. It's a proof to say it is permissible. It doesn't say it's not a proof of saying that it is the correct way to do it. Dalilul ibaha means that it's just to say that you can do it, but it's not the dalil afdaliyah, right? Right, so the next masla is a very interesting one, contemptuous one, not contemptuous, but say, وَلَا يَجُوزُ لِلرِّجَالِ أَيَقْتَدُوا بِمُرْأَةٍ أَوْ صَبِيٍّ. It is not permissible for baligh men, right? Baligh men to follow a woman or a nabaligh child, right? So if a child that hasn't reached, remember in Sharia you can become baligh one of two ways. One is you reach the age of 14 and a half Islamic, well, you reach the age of 15 years, which is 14 and a half Islamic years, or you show the signs of puberty, right? You have ihtilam, you can have wet dream, or you can impregnate a woman. That will come later on, we'll discuss that. So a person who is not baligh as yet, right? You will not be able to leave the baligh men, the mature men in prayer, right? And in the Hanafi madhab, this even refers to the Taraweeh Salah. This even refers to the Taraweeh Salah. So, وَلَا يَجُوزُ لِلرِّجَالِ أَيَقْتَدُوا بِمِرْأَةٍ أَوْ سَبِيٍّ. Right? So carry on there. أَمَّا الْمَرْأَةُ من حيث أخرهن الله فلا يجوز تقديمها. So what's our proof to say that a woman cannot be the imam of a man? There are many proofs, but one of the main proofs is this: أما المرأة, because as a woman, فلقوله عليه السلام, because of the statement of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, أخروهن من حيث أخرهن الله. أخروهن, keep them behind. أخروهن من حيث, from where أخرهن الله, where Allah Ta'ala has kept them behind. فلا يجوز تقديمها. So what he's saying is, Allah Ta'ala, this is a separate subject matter, but we don't want to go into that. But Allah Ta'ala has got designated a different role for a woman in Islam. Allah Ta'ala has designated a different role for a man in Islam. Right? الرجال قوامون على النساء. Men, they are the keepers of the woman, etc. So Allah Ta'ala has made it as such that a woman shouldn't be in the forefront of things. Like how we told you now, she won't be imam in front, right? She must be behind. She's awrah, she's satar. So Allah Ta'ala and Nabi Sallallahu said that أخروهن, keep them in the shadows, right? حيث أخرهن الله, like Allah Ta'ala has kept them in the shadows. فلا يجوز تقديمها, so it will not be permissible to put her in front because this will be going against an explicit hadith. Carry on.
أما الصبي فلأنه متنفل فلا يجوز اقتداء مفترض به.
Right. So there's another masla here. It's a famous like ayah. I told you get a masala of al-qira'atu khalf al-imam, etc., etc. There's another masala called al-muftaridu khalf al-mutanaffil. Whether a person who is reading faraz namaz, a person reading faraz namaz, can he pray behind a person who is reading nafil namaz? Right. So in the Hanafi madhab, a person who is reading faraz namaz cannot pray behind a person who is reading nafil namaz. I repeat that. A person who is reading faraz namaz cannot pray behind a person who is reading nafil namaz. So same thing here. We say, look here, when a child is not baligh as yet, when a child is not baligh as yet, then that child's namaz is nafil namaz because it's not faraz upon him. So if you're going to make an adult whose namaz is faraz, right? So that means a person reading faraz namaz will be praying behind a person who's reading nafil namaz. And that doesn't make sense. Like I told you before, if you look at a train, the engine must be strongest to be able to pull the carriage, right? The carriage doesn't pull the engine, right? So the engine is the one that has all the power. So the faraz is the one that has the power. The faraz is the one that has the power. So the one who is the most powerful one must be in front. So a person reading nafil namaz, his namaz is weaker. So how can the person who is reading the weaker namaz pull the person who is reading the stronger namaz, right? So that's we're saying. وَأَمَّا الصَّبِيُّ فَلِأَنَّهُ مُتَنَفِّلٌ, because as for a child, because his namaz is nafil, فَلَا يَجُوزُ اِقْتِدَاءُ الْمُفْتَرِدِ بِهِ, so it will not be permissible of a muftarid, a person reading faraz namaz, to follow the mutanafil. Right? وفي التراويح والسنن المطلق جوزه مشايخ بلخين. But Tarawih namaz, right? Which is sunnat mu'akkada and sunan mutlaq, in if you're reading some other sunnat in Jamaat, whatever, jawazahu mashayikh balkhin, the mashayikh of Balkh, the Hanafi, they given permission, but walam yujawizu mashayikhuna, like I told you, I mentioned to you earlier that the preferred opinion, is not permissible, whether it is nafil namaz, whether it is sunnat namaz, walam yujawizu mashayikhuna, our ulama have not given permission, right? Okay, let's stop. The time is up. We'll continue tomorrow, inshallah. From the best of the Subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanakallah bihamdika, wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.